There is a popular saying in leadership that if you think you're leading and there's nobody following you, you are only going on a walk. On this platform, you are going to learn principles of leadership. You are going to encounter different leaders. You are going to learn about how you can grow as a leader, how you can make an impact. My name is Samuel Eyim, and I'm the host for the leadership platform. I am a leadership coach, a lawyer by profession, a John C. Maxwell certified coach. I have been in corporate life in senior positions for several years, and now I run the Center for Transformational Leadership, where we train and coach leaders to become better leaders. And I invite you to go on a journey with us as we discuss the subject of leadership in the coming weeks.
This and every Saturday, you have opportunity to ask questions, share your views on important leadership matters.
Hello. Good evening, everybody. Good evening. You are very welcome to the leadership platform. We thank God the Almighty for giving us yet another Saturday, and we know that it is His will that we are going to gather this evening, and we are going to learn, and we are going to unlearn, and we are going to relearn. Every Saturday on the leadership platform, we bring you a subject of interest to leaders. We bring you a subject that would raise your lead of leadership, a subject that would increase your influence as a leader and make you a better leader. This is what the Center for Transformational Leadership is here for, and we encourage you to join us this and every Saturday as we empower you and as we encourage you. So I want to thank all of you, those who join us every Saturday. We thank you for your loyalty. We thank you for the confidence in the Center for Transformational Leadership to learn more about leadership. Those who are joining us for the first time, we also welcome all of you, and we thank you for spending part of your Saturday evening with us. We are going to be together for 1.5 hours, and we have a very, very important leader and speaker and teacher and spiritual guide who is going to help us on the subject of leading the next generation, which is the youth of today. Now, if you are online, please introduce yourself, send us your comments, then tell us your name, where you are calling from, where you are joining from, and we would acknowledge you. I see Ben on the line. Thank you very much, Ben. Ebenezer Tufo is here. Michael Annan is here. Albert Apabin is here. And so we see other people joining. Those of you online, just write your name and where you are joining from. I see Fred Asare is here, and many more people continue to join. So thank you, everybody, for joining the leadership platform and getting ready to learn with us. This evening, we are discussing a very important subject, and the personality who is going to talk to us is Dr. Samuel Twumasi-Ankrah. Dr. Twumasi-Ankrah is the president of Heritage Christian College University. He's a lecturer. He lectures in ministry and leadership at the university, but he's also a pastor who has led the church, once time the biggest Church of Christ in Ghana, for over 22 years, and from there has established several congregations of the church. And in that position, he has trained, he has groomed, he has counseled hundreds, if not thousands, of young people. Dr. Twumasi-Ankrah is a graduate of Abilene Christian University in Texas, Akrofi Chrysler Institute in Ghana, Baylor University, California, and he holds a doctorate degree in higher education, in administration, and leadership. Dr. Twumasi-Ankrah is a mentor and a coach to many people, including myself. He's been my mentor for several years, maybe about 30 years. He's been guiding me and encouraging me on both in my marriage, in my profession, and in my spiritual life. He's one of the few people I call on to. And there are many professionals who, under the feet of Dr. Twumasi, have grown to become better people. He's currently the president of the Heritage Christian University. We're going to just share a short video of HCC for you, and then Dr. Twumasi-Ankrah will take us away to discuss the subject of young people and how to lead them. And if you are a young person and a future leader, you are going to learn from Dr. Twumasi-Ankrah. And if you're a leader of young people, you are going to also learn. Whether you're a parent or whatever status you are, you have opportunity this evening to improve your leadership. So welcome once again to the leadership platform, and stay with us as
parents, guardians, SHS leavers, diploma and HNE holders, and all other stakeholders of higher learning institutions. Here are some reasons why you should choose Heritage Christian University College. Our serene environment is located behind the Olympic Stadium, Amasama. The green fields, the beautiful flowers, the peace and quiet in the neighborhood, all sold together facilitates our learning process. Students live and learn in a manifestly Christ-centered environment, and there is this kind of cordial relationship between students, faculty members, and lecturers. Therefore, students are able to approach their lecturers, interact with them, ask them anything bothering them with respect to academics and any other thing, and they'll be assisted. Because we are a technology-driven institution, all our students use a laptop, and our 24/7 robust Wi-Fi system enables the students access all their learning materials, electronic textbooks, and any other information on our server. Again, because your survival depends on the usage of laptop, if you're happy not to own one, we'll sell you one, spread the cost for you over your stay on campus, and bit by bit, semester by semester, you pay them till you are done.
One major problem we face as a country is unemployment. At HCC, through the Center for Entrepreneurship, Philanthropy and Ethics, we take the students through a series of training and again support them financially to start their own businesses. As I'm talking to you now, we have students who have started their businesses alongside learning. And so we encourage you to enroll at HCC and your dream will be realized. We do not only train HCC students to be local champions, we also give them quality training so that wherever they find themselves, they can perform. And because of that, we do invite lecturers and faculty members outside Ghana to train them and also expose them. We know our system is hard, and getting money to go to university is not easy. In view of this, we do have scholarships for all students. We have general one for every student who qualifies into the degree education, that is 25% for all. And we also have other scholarship packages for everyone, but this one is based on merit. Terms and conditions apply. Admission is ongoing. We do admission in January and in October. Because of the COVID-19, our form is going for free. Apply and school at HCC and your life will never be the same.
All right, thank you for staying with us. Dr. Twumasi-Ankrah is going to speak to us for about 30 minutes, and then we have 40 minutes to interact, ask questions, and so stay with us. Usually we learn much more, even in the Q&A session. That's why we make the presentation as short as possible so that you can have time to ask your specific questions. So stay with us. Dr. Twumasi-Ankrah, you are very welcome to the Leadership Platform, and we're excited to have you on the Leadership Platform and to share your experience of grooming and bringing up young people with us. Thank you very much.
Hello, everyone. It's so good to connect with you all on this platform. Certainly a platform that transforms people inside out, in my view. I thank the CEO of Center for Transformational Leadership Africa, Mr. Im, for inviting me to share some thoughts with you. I want to begin by saying that if I have been successful in my leadership roles, I certainly owe it in part to you, Mr. Im. It might interest our participants to know that some 34, 35 years ago, while Kofi, as Mr. Im, as I affectionately call him, while he was a young student, university student, he approached me one Sunday after service and presented me a proposal for youth development. And after reading that paper, I still have that paper, handwritten paper in pen and ink. After reading that paper, I resolved at once that I was going to do everything possible to adopt his ideas, because not only would those ideas bring about success in my ministry, I believed then that they were also going to hone my own potentials for academic and leadership capabilities. So if I have achieved any success, I owe it in part to you, Mr. Im, and God bless you. I'm sure you are seeing the image on the screen. I am a firm believer in the saying that leadership is more like a baton than a trophy. You keep a trophy, but you hand off a baton. And this is a quote by Bruce Michael. In this presentation, I want us to look at three broad sessions. We are going to take a cursory look, a quick look at the primary generations of the 20th and 21st century. And then we will also quickly take a look at certain factors that are so important for us to understand as far as the differences in various generations are concerned. Then we will consider the implications that these lessons have for today's leaders and also today's youth. Let me begin by saying again that all events in every society, all the events that occur do shape the worldview of people born within that period. And usually those events cause the people who are born within a particular time period to behave differently from others. So just a quick look at generations, different generations, as researchers have captured for us. So researchers who study generational behavior have characterized generations as follows. One, they say that people who were born between the 19th century to 1945 are called the traditionalists, the traditionalist generation, and they have certain characteristics. In fact, their characteristics are defined by, for example, the First World War and the Second World War, the Great Depression that occurred, especially in America, North America, which also led to mass production of the automobile. And people who were born within that time were raised by parents who had just survived two wars, First World War, Second World War, and at the same time, the Great Depression. So you can imagine, if people were born within a certain time frame where there have been two world wars, and on top of that, Great Depression, economy is shattered, and hundreds and if not thousands of people have been killed at war. You can imagine the living conditions at the time. People who were born during this period experienced hard times while growing up, and so there were a lot of difficulties they faced. But during those times also, the traditional generation, in America, for example, they undertook major public projects, major financial reforms, and then also the American society saw the rise of a lot of corporations. And within the same period, women rights, rights to inheritance, right to for women to vote, all started. Again, space landing and moon landing, Cold War, all these were some of the great events that took place between the turn of the 19th century, 1900 to about 1900, 1945. So that is one generation. Then from there, we can also talk about the baby boomer generation. Baby boomer generation, sometimes they are referred to as boomers or boomer generation. And they were born from between 1946 to 64, the halfway of 1940s to halfway of the 1960s. And the major events that define this particular generation include, again, the rise of activism, where, for example, we have notable leaders like Martin Luther King, and then also JFK, John F. Kennedy, who proposed or came up with radical leftist political ideologies. At the same time, also, that generation saw the rise of sexual revolution. Events such as the Cold War between the West and the East were all part of things that shaped the people's mindset and lifestyle and value system. Space travel, the advent of television, all took place within the boomer generation or the baby boomer generation. And that generation also saw the highest rate of divorce and second marriages in American history. In fact, the American dream was something that parents at the time really instilled this dream into their children from their childhood, where they encourage children, if you study hard and work hard, you can live as if you were living in paradise. You'll be successful. And children who were born in this period pursue that philosophy of life, resulting in their being referred to sometimes as greedy and materialistic and ambitious people. And you move from the boomer generation to another generation called Generation X. Generation X. And these are people who were born from the 1965, the middle of 1960s to the end of 1980. 1965 to 1980, Generation X. Sometimes they are called XS. All right. And the defining events for people born within this time frame include dual income families and single parents. Because you see, this generation, their parents, the boomer generation, worked very hard and made a lot of money. And but they, along the line, they relaxed. So people in this generation had to do 2 jobs, 2 or more jobs to survive, because that is what they had to do. Divorce was on the increase during this time, and people who were born in this time period grew up seeing their parents being laid off, and therefore people born in this generation had to take care of themselves from the early stages in their life. This same period saw the fall of the Berlin Wall and the end of the Cold War. And all this, although it might sound like it happened in American society, all this had worldwide repercussions and implications on world economy and lifestyle and ideologies, whether political or philosophical, educational. Again, people who were born in the X generation from the 1965 to 1980, they came of age in a period of economic expansion. At the same time, they experienced the emergence of diseases, incurable disease, just like HIV/AIDS, which is similar to what we are going through now. School shootings was also very popular in that generation. Then we can also talk about another generation or another set of generations that researchers usually refer to as the millennials. The millennials. There are 2 categories of the millennials. You have the Generation Y, who are people born from the early 1980s to mid 1996, or the mid of 1990s. The early 1980s to the middle part of the 1990s. They are the Generation Ys. And then those who were born from the 1997 through 2012 are also referred to as the Generation X. But by and large, researchers classify them as the millennials because they have a lot in common. During this time frame, people who were born in this time frame, their defining events, major defining events include great economic recession. People who were born during this period grew up and became more sheltered by their parents than any other generation. Their parents wanted to shelter them from all the evils of the world. Typically, they grew up as children of divorced parents, or they were raised by single parents. And then global terrorism, for example, 9/11, is something that they have experienced. Arrival of the global internet. People born in this time frame are also called the social media natives. And you can talk about the landmark pendulum shift in political thought. For example, as seen in the elections of Obama versus that of Trump. During the period of Obama, the American Supreme Court ruled on same-sex marriage, which is a leftist ideology. And then, so it is no wonder that, after Obama, we had a American president who also swung the pendulum to the right, far right. And all these are important for us to understand because they are events that affect and shape the mindset, the value system, the preferences, the strengths and the weaknesses of people born in that generation. And it's important that we talk about them. Now, I want us to take a moment and consider some of the specific differences, because it's important that we understand them. Different generations have different personas. It's very important for us to understand this, that different generations, people born within certain time frames, are influenced by certain events, and therefore they develop different personas. And if we, as a leader, if you fail to understand the characteristics, the strengths, the weaknesses, the mindset of people born within each generation, it has the tendency to create a disconnect between you as a leader and the people you are leading. And so failure to understand the characteristics of people from different generations can create disconnect and even turn away young people. So on this slide, I'm going to show you just samples, not all, but samples of strengths that the various or some of the major generations are characterized with. If we take the baby boomer generation, for example, people born from the 1945 to 64, most of these people are now, as we speak, they are now 55 years and above. 55 years and above. Some of their strengths, according to research, include experience. They have been around for a long time. They have a lot of work experience in life. They are disciplined. If you remember the circumstances in which they were born. One of their strengths is their work ethic. They are described as workaholic, and productivity is something that is something they cherish most. They are also paternalistic in the sense that they can be very controlling, very authoritative, and problem solvers. That is the baby boomer. How about the Generation X? Those born from the 1965 to 1980. Now, these people are currently they are between age 40 to about age 55. Their strengths include professionalism, and they are knowledgeable, generally speaking. They were privileged to have the opportunity to go to school, unlike baby boomers. The Generation X, by the time they were born, there were more schools, more universities, and so they are more knowledgeable and professional-like in the way they conduct themselves, and they are also self-confident. Then you can talk about the millennials. Some of the strengths of the millennials include harmony, openness to change. They are rapid learners. They are multitasking people, very fast-paced work. They love fast-paced work, and they love fun and excitement and innovation. These are some of the strengths if we consider the baby boomer generation and Generation X people and the millennials. These are some of the strengths. Here on this slide, you can see some sample of their weaknesses. When you talk of the baby boomers, for example, one of their weaknesses is that they are technologically inadequate. Usually they are referred to as born before computers. All right. Physically, by this time, most of them are 55 years and above. And so physically, they are growing weaker and weaker if they are on the job, or if they are in the church or wherever they are. They can be hypercritical and intolerant because they don't want to see change. They are very conservative. And their attitude towards money, generally speaking, is buy now and save later. They don't fear taking loans, for example. That's baby boomer. Those are some of their weaknesses. When we talk of the Generation X people, their weaknesses may include the know-it-all attitude. Because of the opportunity they had, on the average, most of them have been to schools of higher learning in wherever they find themselves, whether in the family or in the church or on the job. Generally speaking, if you compare them with the background of those from the boomer generation, you realize that they tend to come across as knowing it all. And again, one of their weaknesses is they seem to be anti-authority, constantly complaining, and they criticize a lot. They have a strong sense of entitlement. That is also another weakness of the Generation X. And you can say that they are responsibility averse. They don't really want to commit themselves to the job or to marriage or to anything that requires permanent loyalty on their part. They get bored quickly. If you remember, they were born after computer time, so they are social media and digital natives. So they get bored quickly unless they are doing their own things. And their attitude towards money, they earn to spend. They earn to spend. Unlike the baby boomers or unlike the traditionalists who work to save, the Generation X people earn to spend. And then when you talk of weaknesses of the millennials, they are also they are young. They are young. Right now, they are between the age 20 to age 40, thereabout. So they lack experience. They lack formalism. I mean, they meet you, they will not greet you, whether in the church, on the job. I mean, some of our revered or cherished African traditional norms, they don't care. They don't know, and they don't want to know. One of their weaknesses is questioning. They question almost everything, and it's a weakness. Weak sense of responsibility is another characteristic, negative characteristic. They lack work discipline. They have poor human relations, and like the Generation X, this group also have the tendency to earn money and just make money and spend. We can go on and talk about things that could be classified as their preferences, but for time's sake, I would bring them up in the later discussions. But I want us to quickly now spend the rest of our time focusing on the implications of the generational differences. The implications of generational differences for today's leadership. In other words, if you are a leader in a corporate environment and you have staff who cut across from the boomer generation through the Generation X, through, say, the millennials, or if you are a church leader and you have, multi-generational church members cutting from, probably you may have some few elements of from the traditionalist generation, and you may have boomer generation and all the generations. What implications do this have on your leadership? We need to understand that diversity in terms of the mindset and the strength and the weaknesses or the values and preferences of the youth, whether you are talking of Generation X, whether you are talking of the millennials, the mindset, the strengths and the weaknesses pose serious implications. So, for example, what are the implications that these bring to parents who are leaders in the home and the family? See, the differences in terms of the strengths and weaknesses, or values and preferences should guide parents to know how to relate and communicate to their children. We are all not on the same wavelength when it comes to, because we are born in different generations, when it comes to our values and preferences. And so if you are a parent, for example, if you are a boomer parent born within the baby boomer generation, the likelihood is that you see your child every time having the ears plugged with earpiece, looking and looking at the cell phone or the tablet all the time. You are definitely going to get mad. Why? Because why should you live all your life, getting fixated on this tablet? But you see, you need to understand, that is not to say just allow them to do their own thing, but you need to understand that you were born in different time, they were born in different time, and that accounts for why they are behaving the way they are behaving. And therefore, you need to find a different way of relating to them and communicating to them, so that there will be peace and there will be understanding, and you can get along to get them to do the things you think they need most in their life as your children. How about leaders of churches, church leaders, and leaders of voluntary organizations? Let me say this at this point. My personal experience, I've been blessed for close to 40 years, I've been blessed to be involved in different ministries where I literally worked and walked and talked and ate and did everything with young people. So my personal experience affirms that as a leader, to be able to effectively lead young people, you should adopt what I call 3R worldview transformation. 3R worldview transformation. If you are going to be effective as a leader, if you want to be successful as a leader, who will really mobilize young people and influence them to do better things. Number one, you need to relate to them in a different way altogether. You need to be part of their lives. So number one, relationship. You need to come down, let them know that there's no barrier whatsoever between you and you are the same. So you talk to them, you live with them, you leave no barriers between you and them. Whether you are a parent, whether you are their boss, because it is only when the young people, whether they are Generation X, particularly those in the millennial category, it is only when they know that you have a genuine relationship with them, you are interested in their well-being, you identify, you bond with them in their struggles. It is only then and then that they will open up. They will respect you, whatever you say, whether what you have to tell them has substance or not. It is only there and then that they will open up and they will listen to you. Then once the relationship between you as a leader and the young people is good, then you can do the number two, reason. It is only then that you can appeal to them, their conscience, and reason with them. Maybe they are doing certain things that are wrong, or maybe there are certain things they don't know and they need to know. And it is only based upon the kind of relationship you have with them. That's why you can then begin to talk and teach and pass it on to them, whatever you think they need to know and believe and live by. But if the relationship is not good, or the relationship is so formal, it's an arm's length relationship, then no matter what you have to teach them, whether you are a church leader, a Sunday school teacher, or preacher, or whatever, whether you are a church elder, if whatever you have may be the truth, gospel truth, but if your relationship with them is not that good, they would just probably out of respect look at you, but no matter what you tell them, it may not sink in. So number one, the first R is relationship, the second R is reason, and the third R is rhythm. By rhythm, I'm talking about being flexible with them. You can't be rigid with young people all the time. And we, those of us who are in the boomer generation especially, and to some extent, the Generation X generation, if they are parents or if they are bosses, we want to maintain certain standards. We are rigid. But that's not so with the millennials. The millennials want to take things easy, rhythm, fun, excitement. All these are very, very, very important if you're a church leader. Because if you do not relate to them along these lines, it's going to be difficult for you to really impact them. So I have a few questions. If we are a church leader, for example, in what way can we as church leaders effectively instill in the youth the sound doctrine of Christ? It is not enough. Let us remember that it is not enough. We can preach as loud and as powerful as one from the pulpit. At the end of the day, not much of it will be absorbed or inculcated in the young people. So these are questions we need to ask. How effectively can we disciple young people in our churches? Disciple them to inculcate in them spiritual disciplines such as prayer and fasting and life of simplicity and solitude, those kind of spiritual disciplines. What will be the best way? Should we just preach from the pulpit, or teach Sunday school, or give them tracts? The millennials in particular are not interested in reading tracts, but rather maybe if you digitize them, that is where you will get them to. If your worship is more of digitized in form, you are likely going to get them to become interested and get them to come along. What will be the most effective way of training today's youth so that they will become interested and assume leadership role in the church? These are serious questions that church leaders have to ask. How effective or how effectively can we reach out to young people outside the church and win them? Are we going to continue with house-to-house evangelism, public preaching, open air, or what? I'm not saying they are bad, but I'm saying that different generations learn differently. They think differently, and their preferences may differ from older generations, especially. And we should sit down and prayerfully, look into this matter and see how best we can communicate to them. Let me come to leaders in the corporate or business environment. I have questions for you as well. How can you get the young employees in your company or in your organization to embrace your company's ideal, your company's vision and core values? And how can you get them motivated so that they themselves will promote those ideals in a manner that will maximize productivity and profitability? These are questions you have to answer in light of the generational differences, because the way you are used to doing things may not really connect with them, especially the young employees. You need to find ways to communicate to them, to relate to them on levels that will make the whole thing appealing to them. Again, leaders in the corporate world, do you have appointment and promotion policies in place? Do you have succession planning? Because you see, the millennials, these are some of the things they find so important. They find these things so important, and so if they are going to work their heart out for you, then you want to make sure that promotion policies are there, and they know that, okay, if I do A, B, C, D for this number of years, I'm going to be promoted. If I do this and that, I'm going to receive a raise in salary. I'm going to be promoted to this level and that level. We need to examine the preferences, the strengths, the weaknesses of younger generation, especially, and find ways to relate to them, to communicate to them. The same thing is true with leaders in the education environment. How best can those of us in the education environment create faculty-student relationship that leads to effective transfer of knowledge and character transformation? I mean, if you are a boomer lecturer born in baby boomer generation, you are used to lecturing. I mean, they sit there, they all listen to you. But there's nothing wrong about that. But the younger generation learn better, and they can absorb better and assimilate better if you find ways by using social media, by using technology to communicate to them, because that is a second language they speak. And all these are important. You cannot say that, well, come always in person, face to face, let me lecture you, go and read this, go and read that. I'm not saying it's bad, but we are talking of communicating effectively with the younger generation so as to make impact on them. All right, my time is running, and therefore I want to touch on this very important point and wrap up. How do we harness the potentials of people in different generations? Number one, I strongly recommend that leaders of today should adopt the relationship, reason, and rhythm approach, where you relate to them as if you are, somebody said, co-equals. We come to their level, identify with their challenges, their needs, be there for them. Then they will open up to the second. Then you can begin to reason with them, teach them, communicate to them, and then make life flexible for them, the rhythm. Number two, you can mentor them. Mentoring is a key. You see, most of them, if they were Generation X, particularly the millennials, relatively they may have higher education, they may come to the job with higher education that probably many of you who are now in positions of authority didn't have, but by dint of your hard work, you have risen through the ranks and you are now occupying those positions. But you know, sometimes we think they are too known and we don't, but we need to mentor them. Very soon, baby boomers, they are on their way out. Baby boomers who are now 55 years and above are all going to leave the scene, whether in the church, whether in the corporate environment, whether in the academic environment. And the Generation X and the millennials are the ones that are going to take over. So we need to mentor them, because in so doing, we are then transferring our expertise. And in so doing, we are going to ensure that our legacy is passed on and doesn't end when we come to the end of our lives. And it also requires that the youth should be humble enough and step out and seek to be mentored by the older generation. I've always told my Bible students, seminary students, that every leader who wants to be successful has to have three kinds of individuals in his or her life. Every successful leader has to have three kinds of leaders. Number one, you need a Paul. You need an accountability partner. Last week, Mr. Fred Asari spoke a lot about it. Everyone, if you are going to be successful, you can't say that I know it or I've arrived. You need somebody who can look into your face and say you are wrong. If nobody will tell you, this person is bold enough to tell you in your face. A Paul who can be accountability partner or a role model. We also need a Barnabas. Everyone, if you are going to be a successful leader, you need a confidant, somebody. If you are married and there's a problem that you can't share with your spouse, you need this person who is your confidant, who you can pour out and you'll feel safe. Everybody needs a Barnabas. And then thirdly, you need a Timothy. You need a mentee or a protege, somebody you can mentor and pass on the baton of your expertise to, so that in your absence, your legacy will still live on. Again, we have to learn to adopt open dialogue. I've talked about this a lot, especially given the fact that in the church or in the corporate world or in the academic environment, we may be dealing with multi-generational individuals or employees or groups. We need to adopt open dialogue. Now, in conclusion, I want us to remember that as I speak, as I speak and as you listen to me, there are 4 different generations that make up today's workforce. But 75% of today's workforce, whether in Africa or in the West, are made up of the boomer generations who are about retiring, and a lot of them are the Generation X and some millennials. And let's remember that each generation brings a different dynamic to the table. So in the church, we cannot do things the same way, but we have to do things in a manner that would address people on different wavelengths as far as generational preferences and values and strengths and weaknesses are concerned. And the only way for us who are leaders today to truly harness the potential of all the various generations is to understand their generational characteristics. That is where it starts from. We can harness the potentials of the young people by means of the 3 R's: relationship, reason, and rhythm, and also through mentoring. This is the acid test of those of us who are in leadership today. I want to thank you.
For those very, very, very insightful presentation. We know that the time is short and we're squeezing so many things. And as I tell those of you who are on the platform all the time, on the platform, we just give you the highlights. I'm sure if you give Dr. Twumasi-Ankrah 2 hours, 3 hours, 1 day, he'll give you much more details. And so if you need more information, you can contact us and we can arrange it for you. But there's so many people on the line, And we want to thank you very much. People are from Accra. I see Daniel J. Labi, George Akpabli is here, Ivan Slate is here. I see Anna Ogwe is here. I see Cornelius Mensah and Dr. Twumasi. We are going to take the questions. Cornelius Mensah says, I'm glad to learn from you. Thank you so much for encouraging and guiding the youth to become great leaders. We have Ruben. Cynthia Martinson says, I'm excited to be part of this program. We have Jolio from Tema on the line. We have Lydia Hosu. He says, thank you for the opportunity to be part of this program. And we have Charles Opon is here. He says, God bless you for your good work. We have Mulalo Rambo from Malawi. He says he's watching us from Kigali. Thank you so much, Mulalo, for joining us. We have Victoria. We have Inisa Ajayi, who is connecting from Cotonou, Benin. Thank you so much, Inusa, for joining us. Douglas Amate from Tema says thank you for the opportunity. Victoria Chifose, feeling excited to see my great elder. Your humility cannot be compared. God richly bless you for your coaching and teaching. Great presentation. She continues, can you please explain? And Dr. Twumasi, note this. Can you please explain the boomer generation again? I missed the point. So if you note that and answer that one, let me see. There is Eric Kofi. Yes, we'll share the slides. Charles Oponsi, thank you. Great sharing. We have Niyibot from Ghana. Patrick is asking a question. And Dr. Twumasi, maybe you want to take this too, and then we'll continue. You have said it well, but if I may ask, don't you think the millennial age have the current experience compared to the Generation X? Of course, times matter. What's happening in Generation X isn't happening in the millennial age. So his point is, I don't think that the millennial age also have the experience as compared to Generation X. So you note that Lydia says, I now know why I always think my dad doesn't understand me. And we end up arguing all the time on simple issues. Thank you, Doctor, for the insight. All right. Dennis, thank you for the opportunity given me to be part. All right. So, Dr. Twumasi, maybe you should just a quick comment. We have plenty comments and questions, so you make it snappy so that we can take more comments. You want to answer the question whether the Generation X and the millennials have similar experience, and somebody wanted you to just clarify the baby boomers.
All right. The boomer generation, there is a coin word, by researchers, and they say the reason why people born from the mid-1940s to the mid-1960s are called baby boomers. Baby boomer in the sense that their predecessor generation, their parents who were born before 1945, had gone through two wars, First World War, Second World War, and so the world had lost thousands and hundreds of thousands of people. So those who survived, had the privilege of giving birth. And so it was common for them to have several children. One person or one couple can have 10, 12 children. And so between 1945 to the middle part of 1960, people who were born there are called boomers. In other words, the world was repopulated in large numbers. So they were baby boomers. Now, these boomers have a certain characteristics. it includes activism. They were fortunate. Their parents who lived before them, the traditionalist generation, because of the wars, worked extremely hard. They were so hardworking. They rebuilt the world economies. And so the boomers grew up to have almost everything at their disposal. Their parents have worked hard. And so they grew up with, if you like, to a large extent, with a lot of things already done for them. During the boomer generation, between the middle of 1940s to the middle of 1960s, they also experienced the rise of activism, political ideologies, different kind of political ideologies. Martin Luther King in America pushed very hard civil rights, and that did not just happen in America. It had ripple effect on different parts of the world, even here, including us in Ghana. The Cold War between the West and the East, was at its peak at that time. Nations like Russia, United States, and the rest were competing to travel to the moon. And it all required certain resources. People have to think and behave differently. Now, one of the things we need to bear in mind is that the baby boomer generation are generally conservative. They are hardworking. They live to work, whereas the Generation X will work to live. The boomer generation have the attitude of living to work because they derive their sense of worth from working hard and making money, and enjoying life. They believe in the American dream. So these are a few things I can say as far as the characteristics and then also the strengths and the weaknesses of the boomers are concerned. The boomers can be controlling, they are paternalistic, they are rigid, they are not flexible, unlike the Generation X and the millennial. So I hope this helps answer your question because you wanted to know some of the characteristics. Now, somebody else asked a question.
All right. Yes.
May I go ahead? Okay. So the other question is whether the millennials do not have experience. Well, if we look at it practically, let me give a practical scenario. So a millennial certainly should be somebody who was born from the 1981, between 1981 up to say 2012, early part of the 21st century. Now, if you were born during the millennium, what it means is that you are now under age 40 because you were certainly born anywhere after 1980. So you are now 40 years or less. You get a job, you go to the office. Certainly you are going to work under somebody. More than likely that your boss may be a boomer, if not a Generation X, maybe a boomer. And he has worked there probably for 20, 30 years. He probably became the boss, not because he had an MBA or had a PhD, but by dint of hard work, that person rose through the ranks. Now, you as a millennial, more than likely, you are coming in with a bachelor's degree, if not a master's degree. And so, as far as academics is concerned, you are coming in with a higher academic qualification, but you don't have the years or the depth of wisdom and experience that your boss have. That is what I'm talking about. So, if you are a millennial, you may have academic qualifications, but you may not have, because you are young. That is the point. You are young. You may not have had that depth of experience on the job. And that is not to say that you can learn. You can learn. You must be humble enough to learn under the feet of that person. And that person should also be willing to mentor you. The same thing is true in the church. If you are a leader in the church, you cannot always expect your church members, let's sing from hymn book. Preaching should be always, you have the preacher who is lecturing. Millennials are digital natives. They love excitement, they love fun. And so if you want to communicate to the heart the heart of millennials as a preacher. Sometimes you may even want to use drama in your sermon. You may want to use choreography. Can you imagine what will happen if, one Sunday your preacher stood up and brought some people to join him on the stage, and instead of preaching the sermon, he dramatized the sermon? I tell you, there are a lot of people in the auditorium who will get up and walk away and say, then Odibe, what are you introducing in the church? You are spoiling the church. No. Of course, you have to balance it, because that is just one way of connecting to the heart of the younger generation who have been born in a digitized world, who are used to thinking and absorbing information digitally in a certain way. And so I think I will end here with this answer.
Thank you so much, Dr. Twumasi. I want to, just follow up on that and ask you, are these not Western concepts? How do these things apply to the African young person? All this Generation Y, millennials and boomers seem to be Western terms. Do they apply to us also?
Yes, I would say that they are Western concepts. They are rather universal concepts. These concepts came about through research, right? Through research. Perhaps those of us on this side of the globe, Africa and Ghanaians and Africans, perhaps maybe due to the fact that education is developing late. We are not blessed, or we were not blessed to have people who have the academic and intellectual tools to study human behavior and publish, so that we will learn from it. But what you realize is that even if you say that these are Western concepts, look at this from this way. People do research, if you like, in the Western world. They write the textbooks. The textbooks are usually shipped to us on this side of the globe in Africa, or our teachers, our lecturers go there and get their advanced degrees. In other words, they go and learn, and they are influenced by that lifestyle. Our young people are always traveling over there, and they go there and they adopt the philosophy, the mindset of the people. So you realize that these are not exclusive concepts for people in the West. They are universal. Let me say that the application of some of the principles here may probably, in terms of the characterization and the time frames may differ a little bit, because, for example, in the West, the Generation X are said to be Generation X, that is people who were born from 1965 to 1980. The researchers will say that they are more knowledgeable because they were blessed to have higher education. They have more higher education in place during that time frame. But then you come to Africa and you realize that we were late in having more higher education. In other words, maybe here in Africa, our millennials, those who were born from, say, 1997, 96, 97, coming, they are the ones that are going to become more educated, relatively more educated. Per thousand, you have a bigger percentage per thousand who had higher education than the previous generation. So the point I'm saying is that these are not exclusive ideas for Westerners. They cut across. We read their books, we watch their movies, and we are influenced, whether we like it or not, we are influenced by these mindsets and these ideologies.
All right. Thank you so very much. We continue. There are a few questions, but there are plenty of good commendations, good lessons. I'm just looking for some of the questions. Cornelius Mensah, please. My question is, how can the youth of today instill the fear of God and good moral to become the future leaders of the nation, Ghana. So how can those young generation, how can they get all those good character and standards? And Frank, maybe to add to that, Frank Asian asked, Doctor, we live in a patriarchal or matriarchal society where preferences is given to older generation, older people. Young people are scarcely trusted with responsibility. Their gifts are generally overlooked. What shifts will you recommend? So if you want to take those two questions quickly, there are a few more comments so that we go on.
All right.
Doctor.
The earlier question said, how can young people imbibe the fear of God to enable them to become better leader? If that is the question. Well,
yeah.
I would say they need to learn. Not only are we supposed to learn on our own, but when it comes to values are more they are better learned, better appreciated through mentoring. If we learn from people who have lived their lives and they can demonstrate these values, fear of God and love for God and His kingdom and His work, it's better observed in learning than just the theoretical where you read from a Bible or you read from a book. So I will encourage young people to get mentors of people who are spiritually minded and learn from them, learn the good things from them, and make a determination to live out those biblical values that they learn either from the Bible or from mature Christian leaders. The other question has to do with the fact that in this culture, there is respect for age and older people, and therefore young ones sometimes tend to be ignored or not given responsibilities. Yeah, that's a challenge. That's a challenge. And our society, our African society, is still, let me say, old school, old fashioned. We are still very much entrenched in our own African values, where we believe that age is equal to wisdom. Well, there's a sense in which you expect that if the person is old, then it means he is wise, but it's not always the case. It's not always the case. When it comes to respect for authority, I think Africans must, whether you are Christian, whether you are educated or what, we must respect authority. Because why? The word of God, the Bible, and I'm speaking based upon my understanding of the Bible from beginning to the end teaches respect for authority. But there's a difference between being an older person and having a position of authority, and because you lack confidence in yourself, or because you lack confidence in the young person, you keep it to yourself. You don't want to teach him or her, probably because you think that young person would surpass you in terms of impact and success. That is an unfortunate, it's an immature thought. It's an immature thought. What you should realize is that as an older person who holds a position of authority, if you want your legacy to live on, then to safeguard your legacy, you must, out of intentionality, reach out to that young person who is closer to you, who is willing to learn. It's not every young person who is willing to learn, but that young person who is hungry to learn from you. Be willing and share your experience. Share your expertise with that person. Mentor that person. What is going to happen is that after you have left the scene and you are gone, that young person is going to propagate, is going to still live out what he learned from you and even probably enhance it and make it much better. So, yes, our culture tends to despise youth, but I think that it's unfortunate that we continue to look down upon youth. We have to see the potentials in youth. Now, if you study generational differences, as we have attempted to study this evening, then you realize that you don't have anything to fear in the youth. And the youth shouldn't also have any grudge with the older generation. We have to understand the differences. A lot of times, these things are happening in our own culture because the older generation do not have appreciation for the generational differences. And therefore, if they are conservative, if they want to hold on tight, and they think that, the young person cannot do any good. No, that is wrong.
Thank you, Dr. Twumasi.
Hello.
We have just 15 minutes, and there are so many questions and comments. So would encourage your responses to be brief so we can answer everybody before we close at 8:30. Now, there's so many positive comments. Josh says that, wow, the lecture is very insightful. I love the generational dispensations. I am X generation. I am X generation church leader with a host of X people in my leadership. The only boomer I have appears almost tired all the time. The few millennials are a bit slow. Will you advise I keep the X group because I seem to get along so well with them and indeed work to achieve targets? Do I have to blend the generations even if they seem not to perform? So that is a question for you. Note that one, and then we would come. The other question, which is a follow-up on the earlier answer you answered about the values that are to be learned through mentoring. How do young people learn through mentoring when every day on our TV, on our radio, we see our leaders, political leaders, business leaders, church leaders, demonstrate bad behavior, insulting each other, fighting, stealing money, corruption all over the place. That is all we see from our leaders. So what kind of mentoring, what kind of standards can we learn from them? I want you to note that also and help us to address how we as the older generation can, show good examples. So those are two questions from there. Then there is a question from Philemon Mensah. He says, Doctor, how will you call and describe the generation before 1945, baby boomers, before the baby boomers, and the generation after 2012? So some of them you've left out. So how will you describe them briefly? All right. Gina Sare says, my one and only doctor in the whole universe. I feel so proud to hear you impact such priceless insight that would help the old and the new equally. All right, Victoria, very insightful. Then we have maybe a long one from Samuel Amponsa. He said, Doctor, thank you for your in-depth knowledge you shared. You made mention of young people allowing themselves to be mentored, but in our part of the world, most old people do not easily open up to mentor young ones because they will come and take over from them, especially at work. Again, at what stage will a young person note that he is fully mentored and can decide and take over? So those are three questions in one that if you can take them together quickly, then we can begin to wrap up.
All right. Okay. One question said, the questioner said he himself is a Xer or Generation X, and he's surrounded in his church by leaders who are all Xers or Generation X people. What does he do? Ignore them and hook up with the millennials? No. I think it's not a matter of abandoning one generation to make do with another generation. As I said, all people from all the generations come to the table with different dynamics, and therefore, in other words, it comes with different strengths and weaknesses, different mentality, worldview, values, and preferences. And therefore, what you have to do is to study. All the various generations that you find yourself with, whether at church or school or work, and see how best you can communicate to them. You have to use different approaches because people of different generations communicate differently, or they absorb and assimilate information differently. And therefore, you need to find wherever everybody is and work with them. It's not a matter of abandoning one group to work with the other group, but you study all of them, you understand all of them, and you find ways to communicate, to pass on information, to pass on ideas in ways that each character or each group can best embrace it, accept it. I think that is what I can say. How do young people learn through mentors when the adults themselves are doing the wrong thing? Well, yeah. Let me take you to the Bible. This is not a Bible class, but permit me to take you to the Bible. Paul told Timothy that do not let anyone despise your youth, but thou be an example to them, and in word and in character. All right. So, in a situation where you think all the older ones, the adults, are doing the wrong thing, what it means is that you know better. Be careful how you go about it. Yes, even if you know the right thing, be careful how you go about it. It is not to throw your arms in the air, in despair. But what you have to do, if you are a Christian, I will encourage you to pray. If you're a Christian, I encourage you, by all means, you can find, better mentors. If not within your immediate environment where you are, maybe outside of the church or the establishment, the organization, institution in which you are. You can find some people outside your environment. So you cannot rationalize to say that every adult is doing the wrong thing and therefore I cannot be mentored. I think that probably sounds a little bit over generalization. You may not find them within your immediate environment, but you can find them elsewhere. Pray, take your time, and don't come across as if you are proud, pompous, you know better. No, that is also one temptation. But look around, and God will lead you to, as you pray and you carefully look, you will find mentors elsewhere in case you think there are none within your immediate environment. Another question is, okay, somebody wanted to know the generation that came before the boomers and the generation that will come after the millennials. Okay, so researchers say that between research on this type of things, human behaviors, whether it was conducted by sociologists or social psychologists or economists, this type of research really began, the scientific research began at the turn of the century, at the beginning of the 20th century. So they say that people who were born up to 1945, That's the time of the Second World War. They are called the traditionalist generation. The traditionalist generation, as they call them, were people who were born before 19. Sometimes they are also called the lost generation. I should put it that way. Sometimes certain research books or research findings will call them the lost generation. Why? Because none of them is believed to be alive by now. If you were born, maybe a few, but even if they are alive, probably they are shut-ins by now. Those who came of age around the early part of the 1900s, most of them are dead, and if any is around, probably they are now shut in. So their generation is called the traditionalist generation. They suffered 2 world wars within a short period and great economic depression, everything. So the whole world was almost shattered for them, but they had to rebuild, and that developed certain attitude in them, and they are the ones that gave birth to the boomers, because those who survived the traditionalist generation have survived wars, have survived economic war, as well as physical geopolitical wars, and therefore they decided they would give birth. So they gave people married and gave birth to dozens. That's why they call boomers. Now, I'm yet to see any research. The researches that I've used and I've read and I've seen would call the Generation Z or Generation Z, and they are the ones that were born from 1997 to 2012. That is what research literature is saying. I'm yet to see what or how they will refer to the generation that will come after the Generation Z. But as I said, the Generation Y and Generation Z are both characterized as millennials. So after the Generation Z, that is those who were born between 1997 and 2012, I'm yet to learn what researchers will call them. But I think probably by now, with coronavirus and all these things going on in the West, the research is going on, and very soon they will come up with another characterization of the current generation. Somebody said most old people don't want to mentor the young ones. And well, it's true. They don't want to. I won't say most. What I'm beginning to see is that older generation, whatever in your circumstance, your older generation may be different from my older generation, right? So if you are surrounded by people who belong to the older generation who do not want to mentor, I think, as I said before, you can approach them and humbly tell them you want to learn from them. I will say this. Here at Heritage Christian University College, I'm not bragging. I have seen students, both male students and female students, who will walk to me. In fact, I have a policy. I've told my executive assistant, if any student, not staff, not faculty, if any student want to see me at any time, I have an open door policy. Let them in. If they come and I'm too busy, I will tell them to come later on. Otherwise, I want to listen to them. And I have students who will come to me, open up and tell me they want me as their mentor. They want me in their life to mentor them. So, and I see humility. It takes a great deal of humility for you to step out and go to an older person, but you don't go to just any older person. You find somebody that you think has the wherewithal, something that you need, something that you need, which you have seen in that person. You be humble enough to go to them, and most of them will be more than glad to assist you, to mentor you. So I think I have addressed the questions you gave me, Mr. Yim.
Almost running out of time. We have only 3 minutes, but I still have some comments. So I'm just going to read them, and then you will just summarize and give us your closing remarks, because we close the door at 8:30. And Jerry is asking that, how do you get Generation Y people to pay attention to detail? They are always in a hurry and make simple mistakes in reports, and difficult for them to change this habit? So that is one question.
Please repeat the question. Can you repeat the question? How can we get
how do you get Generation Y people to pay attention to details? They are always in a hurry and they make simple mistakes and they don't want to change their habits. So how do you get them to pay attention? All right, and then I think I have one last one from Philemon. In your conclusion, you stated that 4 different generations make up today's workforce, and each generation brings a different dynamic to the table. There's this conclusion based on biblical revelation or reason. I think he has said that this is research. All right, so many people on the line are thanking you. Douglas Boatin, thanking you. John Esel, George Esel has a question, Dr. Twumasi. We hear a lot of complaints about youth today being lazy. Do you think this comment and assessment is fair or just made out of ignorance? All right, so we just have 1 minute. So you will just take your closing remarks and tie in all this, and we would close. Thank you, Doc, and thank everybody for the call. It's 8:30, so if you want to leave, you can leave, but we'll give Dr. Twumasi opportunity to answer these questions and to give us his closing remarks. Thank you very much. We appreciate your time with us.
All right. The Generation Ys, as well as Generation Z, in other words, the millennials, yes, the reason why they seem to they seem not to pay attention to details is because of the kind of world they live in. They are multitasking people. You know, they can with the use of technology, they can do so many things at the same time. And yes, when you say they are in a hurry, you may be right, but that is a strength, and that strength can be their weakness. So it is up to us to understand them and find ways to engage them. You know, it is a strength that needs to be guided, so as for that strength to be used positively to achieve positive results. So that's what I can say. Now, somebody also said the youth are lazy. It's unfortunate for anybody to say the youth are lazy. They are not lazy. Perhaps those of us who think the youth of today are lazy we have not studied generational differences and strengths and weaknesses, and that's why we think they are lazy. People who were born in the millennials, they can use technology, sit in their home, and produce whatever needs to be done. You will not see them dressing up, wearing tie, going to the office. And so it's not a matter of being lazy. Perhaps we need to study and understand. If we study and understand, we will understand why they appear to be lazy. They are not lazy. Well, thank you very much for this opportunity. In conclusion, final remarks. I just want to end with 2 quotes. I started by quoting a phrase that leadership is more like a baton than a trophy. Leadership is more like a baton than a trophy. Trophies are things we keep when you get them. But leadership is a baton. We need to pass it on. If we don't pass your skills, your experience on to younger generation, to others, you through mentoring, you die with it. That leads me to my second point. I have a life philosophy, and my life philosophy is that the greatest use of life, one's life, is to spend it for something or someone who will outlive you, who will outlast you. That is the message I have for all leaders who are listening to us this evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Twumasi. We appreciate you and we thank you for the great lessons. And for everybody on the call, still on the call, make a date with us next week. We will come with you with another enriching lesson. Don't miss it. I'm not going to give you a hint, but please feel free to share the flyers. Go to our website, CTL Africa Facebook, our YouTube. Please subscribe to our YouTube and make a date with us. All the previous presentations are there. You can go back and listen to them. We are preparing to bring to you the Put Your Dream to the Test training, which will be in January. We'll give you the date, but we want you to prepare because you're going to set your targets, you're going to set your visions for 2021. And the Center for Transformational Leadership want to accompany you and give you tools and resources that would enable you to dream big and to be able to make your 2021 better than 2022, achieve great things for yourself. So Put Your Dream to the Test is a course that we are going to offer in January. We're going to give you the date and reserve some time in January for Put Your Dream to the Test. Thank you, God Almighty, for giving us. May God richly, richly bless us.
Parents, guardians, SHS leaders, diploma and HNE holders, and all other stakeholders of higher learning institutions. Here are some reasons why you should choose Heritage Christian University College. Our serene environment is located behind the Olympic Stadium, Amasama. The green fields, the beautiful flowers, the peace and quiet in the neighborhood, all sold together facilitates our learning process. Students live and learn in a manifestly Christ-centered environment. And there is this kind of cordial relationship between students, faculty members, and lecturers. Therefore, students are able to approach their lecturers, interact with them, ask them anything bothering them with respect to academics and any other thing, and they'll be assisted. Because we are a technology-driven institution, all our students use a laptop, and our 24/7 robust Wi-Fi system enables the student access all their learning materials, electronic textbooks, and any other information on our server. Again, because your survival depends on the usage of laptop, if you're happy not to own one, we'll sell you one, spread the cost for you over your stay on campus, and bit by bit, semester by semester, you pay them till you are done.
One major problem we face as a country is unemployment. At HCC, through the Center for Entrepreneurship, Philanthropy and Ethics, we take the students through a series of training and again support them financially to start their own businesses. As I'm talking to you now, we have students who have started their businesses alongside learning. And so we encourage you to enroll at HCC and your dream will be realized. We do not only train HCC students to be local champions, we also give them quality training so that wherever they find themselves, they can perform. And because of that, we do invite lecturers and faculty members outside Ghana to train them and also expose them. We know our system is hard and getting money to go to university is not easy. In view of this, we do have scholarships for all students. We have general one for every student who qualifies into the degree education, that is 25% for all. And we also have other scholarship packages for everyone, but this one is based on merit. Terms and conditions apply. Admission is ongoing. We do admission in January and in October. Because of the COVID-19, our form is going for free. Apply and school at HCC and your life will never be the same.